We were a group of friends, eager for adventure, venturing deeper into the woods. Our laughter echoed among the trees, but it felt like the forest was swallowing the sound whole. Our destination was a secluded clearing, a place whispered about in local legends. A place said to be haunted. We brushed off the warnings as mere folklore, eager to test our courage. We set up camp, the flickering flames of our bonfire providing a small island of light in the encroaching darkness. As night fell, the forest came alive with eerie sounds. The hoot of an owl, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional snap of a twig created an unsettling symphony. The air grew colder, and the darkness seemed to press in on us. We huddled around the fire, sharing ghost stories and laughing nervously, our voices barely more than whispers against the vast, silent night. It was Lisa who suggested exploring the forest at night. "Come on, where's your sense of adventure?" she teased. Despite Sarah's objections, we all agreed, driven by a mix of bravado and peer pressure. We armed ourselves with flashlights and ventured into the dark maze of trees. The deeper we went, the thicker the forest became. The beams of our flashlights cut through the darkness, revealing twisted branches that seemed to reach out like skeletal hands. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Mark, ever the skeptic, tried to keep the mood light with sarcastic comments, but even he began to feel the weight of the oppressive atmosphere. Suddenly, a scream pierced the night. It was Sarah. We rushed to her side, finding her trembling and pointing at something on the ground. It was an old, weathered doll, its eyes missing and its body covered in dirt. We decided to return to camp, but the forest seemed to conspire against us. Paths we had taken easily before now seemed unfamiliar. Panic set in as we realized we were lost. Our flashlights flickered. As we wandered aimlessly, we came across an old, abandoned cabin. Desperation drove us inside. The cabin was dilapidated, its wooden walls warped with age. The windows were shattered, and the door hung crookedly on its hinges. An eerie silence hung in the air, broken only by the creaking of the floorboards beneath our feet. Inside, we found remnants of a life long forgotten. Dusty furniture, cobweb-covered shelves, and strange symbols carved into the walls. As we settled in, strange things began to happen. Whispers filled the air, coming from nowhere and everywhere at once. Sarah was the first to notice the figure standing outside the window, a pale face staring in with hollow eyes. Panic erupted. We barricaded the door and huddled together, trying to make sense of the madness. Drawing on an inner strength I didn't know I possessed, I took charge. I scoured the cabin for anything useful, finding an old map that seemed to show a way out of the forest. With renewed hope, I led my friends out at first light. After hours of walking exhausted through the forest, we finally emerged into the clearing where our campsite had been. Relief washed over us as we saw the familiar surroundings. We packed up quickly and made our way back. It was a cold autumn evening when my best friend Jake and I decided to go into Blackwood Forest. Everyone in our town said it was haunted, but we wanted to see for ourselves. The full moon was out, and we thought it would be a fun adventure. We followed a narrow path, the only light coming from our flashlights. The deeper we went, the darker it got. The trees seemed to crowd around us, and every sound made me jump. After walking for a while, we found an old, broken-down cabin. It looked like no one had been there in years. The windows were smashed, and ivy covered the walls. Even though I was kinda scared, I still suggested that we should check it out. Jake nodded, and we walked up to the cabin. The door creaked loudly when I pushed it open. Inside, it was dusty and filled with broken furniture. It felt creepy. Suddenly, a loud scream echoed through the forest. It sounded like someone was in terrible pain. My heart started pounding, and I felt a chill run down my spine. My friend Jake was so scared he couldn't even talk. I told him that we should get out of here now. We ran out of the cabin and back down the path, our flashlights swinging wildly. The scream came again, louder and closer. I was terrified. My heart felt like it was going to explode. We sprinted through the woods, branches scratching our faces and roots tripping us. It felt like the trees were closing in on us. I could barely breathe, but I kept running. Finally, we burst out of the forest and into the open fields. We collapsed on the grass, gasping for air. We lay there, staring up at the stars, too scared to speak. I told Jake that we shouldn't tell this to anyone. We didn't talk much on the way home. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the scream. It felt like something was watching us from the forest, waiting for another chance to scare us. We never went back to Blackwood Forest, and every time I hear a distant scream at night, I remember that terrifying evening. Some things are better left alone, and some places should stay undisturbed.